Hi and welcome to another Checiegirl Art Chat podcast. So today I will be talking about mixed media. Now I am a mixed media artist and I have been since I started my art journey 8 years ago. And I'll be talking about the basic tools that will be useful for you to have, as well as a few tips at the end. And just mixed media. So what is mixed media? Mixed media is when you combine different mediums together in one piece. So that could be different paint mediums like acrylic with inks, and then you can combine some paper like different embellishments and onto any kind of surface. And it is very it doesn't really have any rules, very unlimited. The sky's the limit really. You can do anything when it comes to mixed media. So let's talk about basic tools and how to get started, because since you can do so much, it's kind of useful to have a bit of a foundation. So surface, you'll need a surface to create on, and that could be a canvas board. You can get them at a nice affordable price at quite a few craft and art stores. As well, you can create on wood, cardboard, in art journals, mixed media sketchbooks, any kind of surface really. Fabric, many surfaces. I tend to use mainly canvases or canvas boards. Sometimes I create on fabric, but yeah, canvas and canvas boards are the ones I tend to go to the most. And then to work on any kind of surface, especially if you're moving away from the canvas, you'll need a primer. So gesso is something that, again, you can get a nice affordable price. And gesso is an acrylic primer. And you can get it white most of the time. And it's great to put over porous surfaces or non-porous surfaces. So if you're creating on wood, it's great to create a nice even surface that you can create on, or fabric, so that the fabric doesn't suck up all your paints, which makes your paint last longer. And sometimes it's also nice to add another layer on your canvases, but that's not always needed because they do tend to come primed. And you can make your own gesso. I make chalk primer. It's different from a acrylic gesso, but again, it works as a great primer. And you can actually look up quite a few videos on how to make your own gesso. You can just pop that on into YouTube if you want to, but you can get a really nice affordable gessos at craft and art stores. And you can also use white acrylic paint if that's all you have at hand. But if you're looking to do that a lot, I would recommend investing in some gesso just to save your white acrylic. So next you'll need some color mediums. So acrylics, I would say, are great for that. You can use acrylics watered down like watercolor, thicker like oils. Acrylics are very versatile, so I would recommend acrylics as well. They dry permanent, which makes it even easier to layer up. And you can also use things like inks. I use acrylics and inks a lot. Sometimes I use markers as well, but I would say acrylics and inks were quite versatile for me because, as I mentioned, acrylic is very versatile, but so is ink, especially when you get inks that dry permanently, or you can put it in a spray bottle and spray it. You can use a calligraphy pen with it and add smaller details with the inks. Those are two very nice versatile mediums that you can use. Next, it's some paper mediums. So paper mediums, I would recommend tissue paper. You can get tissue paper in packages when you get new shoes. You don't even have to buy tissue paper. I don't think I've ever really bought tissue paper for mixed media, to be honest. I've always just taken it from packaging and getting new shoes. You can also get patterned tissue paper at craft stores as well. But if you're looking for more kind of budget friendly to start up with, just find it in your packaging and just wherever you can find tissue paper. Other things is book paper. If you go to a charity shop, you can get books, and that's great for adding visual texture in general, a nice pattern. Deco paper is really nice. You can add Colors with deco paper, textures, again, visual textures with like the patterns. Deco paper is great for that. Yes, I would say those papers, I would say, are like the top ones. I've used all of those many a time. I would say book paper is always my favorite because book paper I just find is so versatile, especially when you get book paper in like a different language is always, I find, like really interesting. And you can also, if you get book paper in your language, you can cut out words and like maybe add little phrases or quotes and sayings onto your piece if you like that kind of style. Next are like tools and adhesives. So I'll start off with adhesives. Glue, like any kind of like white glue, like PVA glue, that's great for like sticking down most things. If you need something maybe to stick down something slightly heavier, tacky glue is good, like if you're sticking down embellishments or something, as well as hot glue. Hot glue is pretty good for that as well. And then other adhesives, like those are wet adhesives. You can also use glue stick. I don't normally use glue stick. I tend to prefer to use my wet mediums because when I say use like PVA glue, I tend to put a layer of glue at the bottom, stick the item down, and then put a layer of glue over the top, especially if it's paper. I find it just seals it in a little bit better. But you can use glue stick if you want to. Just make sure it's a nice strong glue stick. You don't want it to be a very cheap one. You want to be quite a strong glue stick, so which is why white glue I find is better. A little bit more affordable than strong glue sticks in my opinion. As well, masking tape is great for sticking things down but also adding texture. Washi tape is great for adding texture. Those are really nice. You can even get fabric tape. So you can use like the tapes in a decorative way or functional if you want to, but I tend to use them more decorative. And then tools, paintbrushes, any kind of paintbrush really. You don't have to go fancy with it. Anything that will cope with acrylics, which tends to be most paintbrushes. Yeah, paintbrushes. A couple flat, I would say a few flat in like a few different sizes, a few round, and then maybe a few like smaller ones if you want to like add details. But if you're looking for a more looser one, you don't really need too many small ones. But a round paintbrush with a nice tip will be great for adding details. A palette knife is great for applying paints. But if you don't have a palette knife, you can either use like a disposable knife, or even better, I find this works a little bit better than disposable knives and a little bit closer to a palette knife is like a old gift card. You can cut that into different shapes, or you can just use it like the whole gift card, and you can use that to spread paint. As well as things like texture paste. That's kind of like an added medium. You don't really need to start off with that, but if you really get into it, you can look to adding things like modeling paste. Texture paste is the one that I make myself, which is like modeling paste. So again, you can look up how to make that yourself. But modeling paste is really nice for adding texture, and you can apply paint, modeling paste, gesso through stencils. That's another thing that you can either buy stencils or make stencils out of like packaging plastic. You can use that, or cardboard as well. That also makes a nice stencil. Just packaging plastic will last a little bit longer than cardboard. Another tool as well that's really nice and you can find around the home is bubble wrap. Sheets of bubble wrap is great for like putting some paint on and stamping it. You can use it as a stamp. Bottle caps, corks, disposable cutlery, all those things you can use to add marks to your pieces. So look around and see what you can use that's around the home, and you can use a lot of stuff to create texture on your piece. And to also have different things work together, you can tint your gesso with your acrylic paint or your inks. That's a really nice way to like maybe start off with a colored background, or you can just, you know, add that on as another layer. And then next is embellishments. So embellishments, the sky is the limit. Embellishments could be things that are bought, like wooden embellishments, paper embellishments, metal embellishments. It could be found items, like if you have an old key that, you know, doesn't have a home anymore, you can use that. You can use springs, washers, leaves, feathers, anything really. Fabric elements like ribbon, tassels. If you have like an old t-shirt, you can rip that up, use it. You know, embellishments is really whatever you're looking for to accent your piece. It all depends. Like anything, you can use absolutely anything as an embellishment. Yeah, anything really. I really can't think of where you could stop. Anything could be used as an embellishment. And you can also look at making your own embellishments. Again, you can look up on YouTube like DIY mixed media embellishments or just embellishments, and a whole bunch of things will pop up. If you are listening to this on YouTube, I will make sure and link my mixed media playlist in an iCard, and like put it in the description as well, and you can check out any of like my tips and stuff. I do have a video on how to make stencils, so I'll link that stuff in the description if you're not on YouTube, and I'll also put it like in an iCard if you want to look at those videos. But yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to make things yourself, so you don't have to go out and just buy a whole bunch of stuff, especially if you just want to try it out at first. So just to finish off the video, I thought I would finish off with 3 tips. So the first is, don't be afraid to cover things up. This is what I struggled with a lot when I started off. Like, you could have a really nice background, but I want to add more things. Don't be afraid to cover things up. Mixed media could really be all about layers, and you can start off with, like, you know, you can start off with priming your surface, especially if you're working on a porous surface, or even I've used like magazines to make my own journals. It helps to be able to prime the surface. Then you can put on some papers, tissue paper, deco paper, any kind of papers. Then you can go in with your paint, and you can add some maybe stenciling on there. And you could just keep on adding and adding. So don't be afraid to cover things up. And sometimes you need to cover things up so that it doesn't end up too like busy and stuff. You know, you can go in and add some like more like slightly blanker spaces with white paint or gesso. And yeah, so it's all about layers, and don't be afraid to cover things up. Don't be too precious with it, because a lot of the time, sometimes mixed media pieces, like what you see, like going by what I've created, what you see is really the tip of the iceberg. And there could be so many layers that you can't even see evidence of, but you need to, like, sometimes you just need to cover those things up to get where you want to. So don't be afraid to cover things up. Next tip, don't limit yourself with rules. So rules that you might find in different styles of art, you don't need to really apply any rules when it comes to mixed media. And sometimes the more you create, you might come up with rules yourself, or not rules, but maybe like guidelines to how to finish off the piece. So when I first start off, there's no rules at all. I just like grab colors that speak to me, grab whatever papers that speak to me, and just slap things on. But then I might say, for my focal image, kind of like the visual triangle, if I'm like making something very specific, like a specific focal image, then I might bring that in. But while I'm making the background, just throw things on. You could be very intuitive with it. Just go with what catches your eye, what you're liking, cover what you don't like, and you'll get there. You could just keep on throwing things at it. That tends to be my technique most of the time. Just throw things at it, and then at some point you'll probably get to a stage where you think, okay, I might highlight that, maybe cover that up a little bit, add details to that, and then you have a finished piece. So there are really no rules. Again, when you look at different tutorials, you can figure out how you would like your process to be. But that's after like quite a bit of creating, then you'll figure out your own process. So yeah, there's no rules. And then next is use prompts or a timer for inspiration. So this is where kind of bringing rules, but I'm going to say prompts really, because you don't have to follow them like to the letter. Sometimes when you sit down, you either feel overwhelmed by the limitless that mixed media is. You have all, like, you especially if you get to the point where you have a whole bunch of materials, and you don't know what to use, you don't know what colors to start off with, but you know you want to create, or you're just not, or you sit down, you may not be feeling overwhelmed, but you know you want to create something, but you just don't know where to start. Prompts are perfect for that. I have prompt cards. You can make your own prompt cards. I've made like 2 sets for myself, just based off of the materials I know I have, because not all prompt cards will be perfect for you, so you can make your own. So for example, I'll like shuffle the deck, and then I can pick one out that says use acrylic paint. So I'll use acrylic paint. And then the next one could be use paper. So I can use any kind of paper. Then the next could be add a fabric element. So I'll add a fabric element. And then the next could be maybe apply gesso. So then I'll apply gesso in a few spots. So it can give you tips just to like how to get started, how to loosen up a little bit. And then to get started, which my mom helped me with this one, a timer is great to really loosen you up. So especially if, say, you might have gotten used to working in a medium that may have a few rules and stuff that you have to follow, or again, you're just a beginner, using a timer to just kind of loosen you up and get you to a little bit more intuitive is great. So you can say, I have 5 minutes to apply some like tissue paper and paper. So you put that on. Then you have like 10 minutes to apply some paint. You have 5 minutes to apply some embellishments. You have 10 minutes to add the finishing details. Like, you can put a timer on yourself, or you can just say, I have an hour to create. Anything really. Just to kind of just stir up, just get the inspiration going and get you creating. So that really helps to kind of just like give you a kick to really start up like the creative engines. And yeah, I find those 2 are great ways to like get started. Yeah, especially in the beginning. And another thing as well, kind of along the prompts, but not so much, if you sit down and like you have like the blank page, sometimes the blank page can be incredibly intimidating. Prompts and a timer helps with that. So yeah, those are really great ways that I find to either get me out of a rut or just to get me going. And another thing I forgot to mention, tools, use your hands. You can use your fingers. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to get messy. If you're someone who doesn't really like to get messy, you can always wear gloves, actually. You can always wear gloves if you want to use your fingers. But yeah, using your fingers, I find, is a really nice way to just kind of get nice and tactile and be a bit more intuitive and nice and messy. And yeah, so mixed media, it's fun. It's really fun. I think it's great to get started with. It's a really nice thing to try. And sometimes doing mixed media, it exposes you to so many different mediums and techniques and materials that if you then want to maybe focus on a few other like mediums, or just like one specific medium, like you've been able to like stick your finger in many pots. And I think that's a really nice thing about mixed media. Like, it just opens you up to many different things. So even when you might now go to just one medium, like I tend to mostly use now like watercolor and gouache, and sometimes acrylic. You know, it all depends, but I'm really into my watercolors now. I discovered that at some point, and even now I still kind of do mixed media on those more like watercolor illustrations. I'll just maybe add some line art, maybe some color pencils, gouache on top of the watercolor, maybe I'll work in some inks. But yeah, starting off with mixed media is a great way to just get yourself exposed to a whole bunch of different techniques and mediums and avenues and all sorts. And another thing I thought I would mention is that you don't, there's no rules. You don't have to stick to like a certain style. My style is very bright and whimsical. And you can see that throughout the majority of my pieces. It doesn't really seem to matter what medium. I like bright and whimsical stuff. So you don't have to stick to bright and whimsical. You can go dark and gothic. You can go rustic and steampunk. So just really experiment. Look at different tutorials to like kind of give you ideas, inspiration, and yeah, enjoy it. Most importantly, enjoy the creative process, because that's what it's all about, really, enjoying creating. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Let me know what you think below. If you have any questions or you would like me to maybe make a video on a specific thing that I've mentioned, let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Yeah, I think that's it. So if you enjoyed, please do give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click that notification bell. I upload a video every Friday. At the beginning of the month, I have a podcast. In the middle, I have 2 process videos, and at the end, I have a monthly vlog. So if you don't want to miss any of those, please do subscribe and click the notification bell. And I will see you guys next week for a video. So thanks for listening. Bye.